Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm so glad to have you all here today. I'm Shireen Ash. I'm your host. I work at the Corte Madera branch of the Marin County Free Library. And today I'm really pleased to have Legal Aid of Marin, or staff members of Legal Aid of Marin, to talk about the impacts of employment and housing as a result of the pandemic and the work they're doing to combat some of those issues in our community. So we are recording this program, so be aware of that. And of course, that means it will be available within a couple of weeks on our YouTube channel, the Marin County Free Library YouTube channel, so we can refer back to it. Our speakers today are Tahirah Dean, Housing Staff Attorney at Legal Aid of Marin, Ellyn Moscowitz, Senior Employment Attorney, and Laura McMahon, Pro Bono Manager. Please stay muted during the presentation. There'll be an opportunity for questions at the end. I would just ask that you put your questions in the chat. I'll read them out, and the appropriate Legal Aid of Marin staff person with the most knowledge on that topic will respond. So with that, Tahirah, I'll get out of the way and let you get it started. Okay, thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Shireen. Thanks so much. We're so happy to be here today. Thank you for hosting us. We really just wanted to get out into the community, make ourselves known even more so than we currently are. And we want to talk specifically today about the pandemic and how it's affected employment and housing in Marin. We are on the ground working with the individuals that live in Marin, work in Marin, and we know how the law has changed and how that's impacted their day-to-day lives. How it's impacted their ability to find housing, stay in their housing, as well as be able to find employment and all the benefits that come with being employed, and just continuing to fight for their ability to work and secure stable pay, all of those great things. We also want to be able to tell everyone how they can get involved and support legal aid and all the work that we're doing. I'm really happy to answer questions at the end. Just as an overview of who Legal Aid is, we offer free bilingual legal services for low-income Marin residents. Our practice areas are civil fines and fees, so community court, if someone has a traffic ticket and they want to work it off by doing community service work, we're able to help facilitate that process for them. Elder law, and so involving, what happens in terms of when someone is planning their future, trust and estates, a little bit of that, we're able to direct them in the right direction for that, and employment law, and of course, housing. And so for our clients, they can contact us by calling us, and we'll provide that number at the end. We also do have several legal clinics in the community, one on Tuesday mornings at the food bank at Canal Alliance, one at North Marin Community Services, and I also need to get my charger, North Marin Community Services, and that's on Mondays. And we're constantly trying to forge new connections in the community to be able to provide that in-person service. We also are allowing some clients to come directly to our office, and we're taking appointments in person. We do prefer that people call us ahead of time though. But yeah, we are very available to our clients. So in terms of talking about housing preservation during the pandemic, I'm one of the staff attorneys. There are a total of myself and my supervising attorney, Josh Sullivan, that we work on the cases, one by one, and anything that comes through the door, the paralegals will do a full intake with them, and then they'll get passed on to us after we make sure that they qualify for our services, and we assess their situation. Mainly, we're doing eviction defense. So if someone has received an unlawful detainer, which is the eviction, formal eviction procedure that must go through court, we're able to represent them most of the time. If someone is trying to sue their landlord, we refer them out because we don't do affirmative cases, or we're just trying to be able to preserve housing. So we will direct people if they are trying to sue their landlord instead of the other way around. In addition, we do have an attorney that works on policy. And so, when we're trying to get further protections for our tenants, our clients, we do have someone that is trying to lobby for their rights and trying to work with other groups to advocate for new policies to come to protect our tenants at the state and local level. So a lot of people are very confused about the eviction process. So we always try to let everyone know what exactly happens when they're going through that process. So we wanted to just give a brief overview for you all as well. So the first step is that a tenant is going to receive a notice. So this notice could be 15 days notice, a 3-day notice saying, you have an opportunity to fix this issue, pay this amount, or you will have to leave. And so a landlord must provide this in writing. They must tell the tenant what is going on, why they're being served this notice, and given a chance to make the corrections before they file in court. So that's step 2. When that notice expires, a landlord has the ability to file an unlawful detainer, which is the eviction complaint, in court. And that starts the back and forth process where, the tenant then has 5 days to respond to that. And then, a trial date is set and so forth. So it can take several weeks after that, the expiration of the notice for things to end up actually in court with the hearing date. But, no eviction can go forward unless with the sheriff coming to remove people, unless the judge and during that day of the trial says, there is a valid eviction here, the eviction can go forward. No eviction can take place unless that judge is making that decision. So a lot of people think that once they get that notice, that 3-day notice, 15-day notice, that the sheriff is going to come the next day, and it's just not true. So we're going to continue to try to break down the barriers and educate people about the process. And we do, like I said, help tenants go through this process. Maybe we're not able to represent them fully for the hearing. Maybe their case is not very strong, but we are able to show them, how to respond to all the documents that they need to respond to, what they need to do step by step. We're able to handhold them, or we're able to refer them out to another organization or another local attorney. So in the last year, since August of 2020, there have been several iterations of protections that have been able to keep people housed when they're not able to pay rent. So last year, August 2020, that's when we first saw the first wave of protections come. Governor Newsom signed a bill saying that there can be no evictions for failure to pay rent. And that kept getting extended. It was supposed to expire in January of 2021, but it got extended to June. Then it got extended, and the final expiration date was September 30th. So going forward, at this time, there's no current protection. But just to educate everyone about what the protections were, it was that, there were limited reasons for eviction, but there was absolutely no evictions if someone couldn't pay their rent, as long as they submitted a declaration saying, I can no longer pay rent because I've been affected by COVID-19 in one of these ways. In addition, they had to pay 25% of all of their missed payments before September 30th. So now going forward, everyone is expected to pay October rent in full, November rent, et cetera, just like old times. But as long as someone complied and paid that 25%, and they had submitted all the declarations for each month that they were unable to pay rent, then the landlord can't go to court and say, they never paid before September of this year, so I'm bringing this eviction, this unlawful detainer for this purpose. So they are protected for that old debt. Now, beginning in November, the landlords will be able to start collecting on that rent, missed rent. But in terms of being brought to court for eviction for that old debt, that can't happen. But beginning, what happened starting October 1st was that when people didn't pay, usually people have about 5 days grace period. But around October 5th, the landlord started to issue a 3-day notice saying, the tenant has not paid for October, you have 3 days to pay, or we're going to bring proceedings against you. So we've been starting to see that happen, and we've been trying to help our clients to, stave that off by telling them where they can get rental assistance. So the places they can get rental assistance are through the county, marincounty.org/rental assistance. That is a program that has been, there's federal dollars involved, there's state dollars involved, but it's being facilitated through Marin County. As long as someone is, qualifies due to what their income is, or maybe they're still not making any money, as long as they fit into the brackets that are listed out on the Marin County's website, then they're able to apply for rental assistance for 3 months at a time. And so some of our clients have been able to, had already applied for rental assistance last year in the past year, and now they're just able to add October's rent, and next month they'll be able to add November's rent, and et cetera, to be able to hopefully get that money processed. People are also going to our partner organizations like St. Vincent de Paul, Community Action Marin, to be able to get just quick checks for rental assistance just for 1 month at a time. So that's been happening. So for clients that are ending up, somehow they're ending up in court because of that back rent, as long as the judge sees that there's a pending application for that old debt, that people are trying to get that old debt covered by applying for rental assistance, the unlawful detainer will be paused. That won't be able to move forward as long as there has a pending application. Eventually, once it becomes approved, then that eviction goes away. The proceedings go away. There was never an eviction on the record. So the protections are in place in case the landlords are trying to bring our tenants to court for that old debt. There are procedures in place if someone's application is denied, but we are thankfully seeing a lot of applications get approved. The process is super slow though. So if someone's applying right now for rental assistance, it's going to take some months for them to get the money. There are exceptions for people that have received 3-day notices. And so it's super important that if people are receiving 3-day notices, that they come to us so that we can be able to contact our partners at Marin County to be able to get them to expedite cases, because we want to keep people housed if they receive that 3-day notice, especially. But yeah, that's pretty much the situation right now of where, there's no protections, there's no protections in place. Only protections are to be able to get rental assistance to pay for current rent that's owed. So there are the other protections that are still in place, are that there's no late fees for that old rent that is owed before October 1st. So landlords cannot charge any late fees for that. The rental assistance that should be coming to help clear the debt, the landlords can't charge additional. They must be satisfied by the rental assistance that they receive. The landlord cannot try to use the security deposit to cover that back rent if a tenant is leaving. They also cannot report a tenant to Consumer Credit Agency for the debt that's before October 1st. And the landlord can't use the current rent, so October, November, December, to satisfy that back rent. Once again, the changes now that we're seeing that, landlords are using the 3-day notice to try to get people to leave. Before during the moratorium, they were only able to use a 15-day notice to as a warning of like, you haven't paid your rent, here's a 15-day notice. Going forward, you're protected, but come October 1st, we're going to take action. So now they're able to send a 3-day notice to the tenant, and then they're able to act on it by going to court. And yeah, once again, we're just encouraging rental assistance programs and seeking help from local organizations. We are also teaching our tenants and our clients that they still have rights in terms of what the landlord can or cannot do in terms of raising the rent. Throughout Marin County, there are areas where there's a rent freeze in place, and that is in effect until December 31st. People can reach out to me directly to understand where exactly those rent freezes are. There is a map that Marin County created, and you have to type in your address to know exactly where you fall in those areas. In San Anselmo, there is an eviction moratorium that was extended to December 31st. So there's some local protections. You'll see, like, for example, in different areas, like in Alameda County, that they were able to extend their moratorium, unlike Marin, before the last AB 832, the last law that prevented local extensions for non-payment of rent. But Marin County, unfortunately, was not able to do that. So the only one that there have an extension is San Anselmo, actually. So that's a little confusing, but just know that you'll see other counties have acted differently. In terms of there's another rent increase limit of 10% as we are in a state of emergency. So if if someone's not in those protected areas, they can't have their rent raised more than 10% anyway. So when someone gets a rent increase, they come to us and we look at where they're living. Are they protected under the rent freeze increase, or are they protected by the general protection of no rents being increased more than 10%? Generally, also, tenants are still protected from harassment, threats of deportation, and retaliation. And we are trying to do more presentations in the community so that tenants, especially those that are in Spanish-speaking communities, that maybe they don't know what organizing is, it's not part of the culture, that they know that they can band together, as neighbors, and make sure that the landlord understands what types of protections that they have, what types of grievances that they have, and that they can work together with us or other organizations to address certain things that have been unaddressed in terms of maintenance, in terms of bad treatments for managers. And so we do have several different complexes that we've worked with in the past where we're able to help people who are not necessarily protected by the law. Like, there's nothing that there's nothing that we can necessarily bring a landlord to court for to protect them, but we can get people together and show that there's something that is a big grievance that needs to be addressed, and just banding people together and showing solidarity is able to effectuate change, and that's something that we're really trying to focus on as well. And so, just as another overview of how do we keep our tenants out of court, we help them apply for rental assistance when they say that they're not able to pay rent, before they get any notices. We're doing these tenant rights workshops to prevent people from self-evicting, meaning people hear that they're not going to be able to pay rent, they get scared, they might leave before they even need to. So we're trying to prevent self-evictions as well. We are having also some tenants that maybe we're not able to assist, that they can go through the district attorney's landlord-tenant mediation program and be able to get problems resolved that way. And we also encourage people to work, we're working with local nonprofits to help our clients get to those organizations that can provide rental assistance and other social services to our tenants. And once again, we're working on policy reform to preserve existing affordable housing and create more housing for our tenants and people in the community. And here's some additional resources that might be helpful. And yeah, just for the housing situation, it is really difficult right now. It's sad that we weren't able to get an extension. We understand that landlords are going through difficulties as well. They want to get paid. It's a slow process, but our tenants are facing a serious, even worse difficulties because they have nowhere else to go. Rents are still high. The rental assistance programs, it's a slow process. It's a lot of red tape to go through. And then people are just really scared right now. They're scared to lose their housing. Some people don't have family support where they can be able to go to crash on someone's couch, someone in the family. So, some of our clients that have lost their housing, like they're still homeless, and people that are afraid to go into shelters for different reasons, their personal background, they just don't want to go into the shelter, so they choose to sleep in their car. And yeah, I just wanted to let people know that it's definitely a difficult situation, and it only continues to get worse because we're barely, we just are at the end of 1 month without the moratorium. So we're only seeing, some evictions come through, some of the effects of not having protections for people that are not able to pay rent. So it only, from here, we hope that it gets better with more rental assistance being dished out faster through the county, but we can only expect the worst because it's only been 1 month without protection. So yeah, I will turn it over to our employment attorney to give a recap on that situation.
Thanks, Tahirah. Again, I'm Ellyn Moscowitz. I'm the supervising attorney of both the employment team, and we have a senior elder abuse practice that I'm also going to talk about. Tahirah, next. This is our VOCA team. We operate under the Victim of Crimes Act, and so a good deal of what we do is primarily focused on wage theft. You might be surprised to learn that there's a lot of employers and individual employers in Marin County who hire people and don't pay them all the wages that they're due. Sometimes they don't pay them at all, and sometimes they fail to pay them overtime or at the correct rate, and so on. So a big portion of our practice is taking wage complaints from workers. We try and help negotiate first with their employers to see if we could get them to pay what's owed. And if not, then we file claims with the Labor Commissioner's office. We're at the Canal outreach every Tuesday. We're at the Novato North Marin Community Services outreach on the 1st and 3rd Mondays of the month. And we're also in West Marin the 2nd Thursday in front of the radio station in Point Reyes Station. We also help with unemployment issues and appeals. We did a lot of that during the pandemic. It wasn't part of the practice before, but so many people lost their jobs at the beginning of the pandemic, and then it was so difficult to get through to the EDD. People's claims were just tied up for a myriad of reasons. So we did get involved in that. And we also do some discrimination cases. We have to weigh the criteria that the discrimination case is in the public interest and has a public impact, but we do have a few litigation cases going. And, we deal with any other workplace issues right now in the community. The kind of calls that we've been getting have a lot to do with vaccine mandates and mask mandates, which I'm going to talk about later in the presentation. The other, as I mentioned, we do the unemployment claims. I'm happy or not happy to say I don't really know what the new figures mean. There are a lot of jobs available out in the community, and we haven't gotten any new calls for help with applying for unemployment in a while, which is good news. The benefits were extended for 1.5 years, but they also were not extended any further after September 30th of this year. And so many of our clients were able to be on and get stimulus benefits, but they've all lost that now. For some of the older workers, it's really difficult to get work, but luckily we're seeing more people working. We also help people in the community who have Social Security needs. Maybe they don't have the capacity or computers to fill out their Social Security applications and need help. SDI benefits, we help with public benefits, and help people get general assistance. And a new part of our practice is financial elder abuse. This is a little different than the elder law that Tahirah mentioned, about wills and trusts. We don't really do wills and trusts. We help put people together with people who can help them do wills and trusts, but I know Laura will talk more about that. But what financial elder abuse is, you have elderly people who rely either on a caretaker or a specific family member who also has access to their money and their financial decisions. Oftentimes there are people in the family who disagree with the elder person's care and how they should be taken care of. And sometimes the money is being misspent by the people who are meant to protect them. So we have a specific expertise in helping people sort out their financial affairs, and whether it be a conservatorship, a special needs trust, we do try and assist in those kind of legal issues. Next. I'm going to pass over the unemployment benefits now, since I think I've mentioned enough about unemployment. And somehow this is the wrong slideshow again. Can you, I'm sorry. Could you keep going? Somehow this is, yeah, somehow my wrong PowerPoint got put in here. I'm really sorry. Okay, wait, could you go just back to, no, sorry. 1, 2, keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Okay, stop. Thanks. All right, well, these are the kind of common wage and hour violations that we're involved in. The failure to pay all wages owed, failure to pay overtime. A lot of people don't know that you're entitled to overtime over 8 hours in a day. It doesn't have to be 40 hours in a week. And there are wage orders that regulate different industries regarding how much overtime you should be paid. But usually it is time and a half after 8 hours in a day. And there are also various work schedules around that. In addition, if you work an 8-hour day, you're required to get 2 10-minute rest periods, usually between the 2nd and 4th hour of work, and then later in the afternoon. And the meal period, you must provide an employee with at least a half an hour uninterrupted meal period. What that means is if you've got a boss who's calling you on your lunch break and can't wait for you to get back to respond or to do anything, your lunch period has been interrupted. So you're entitled to an extra hour's pay. If you have to skip your meal period that day because something was going on at work, you should report that and you're entitled to an extra hour's pay. Anytime the employer does not provide you with a half an hour meal period, which is mandatory by law, they owe you an extra hour's wage. Now, if you work over 10 hours a day, you're entitled to a second half-hour meal period as well, and probably a third break time. So just some things you should know about there. Sometimes the employer fails to reimburse for certain things. It could be tools if you're a construction worker. If you've picked up materials or supplies for your office and they fail to reimburse you, that's a claim with the Labor Commissioner's office. Another violation we see often is calling people independent contractors who really by law should be classified as employees. And a lot of people get confused and they think they're not entitled to overtime or meal periods because their employer has told them you're an independent contractor. But it's a pretty tough criteria to classify somebody as an independent contractor. So I won't go into all those details here, but if you have a problem about that, let us know. Okay, Tahirah, the next slide. Okay, we do develop these calendars and notebooks that we'll be distributing again in January, which are daily calendars. They're primarily for day laborers that help people record, you know, where did I work this day? Who did I work for? What are they supposed to pay me? And to kind of keep track, have a daily diary. It is important no matter what kind of work you do, if you aren't working somewhere with a time clock, that you do write down the total hours and minutes you worked in a day. If you start work about 5 to 10 minutes early, or you stay a little bit later, the United States Supreme Court has said anything more than a couple minutes before or a couple minutes after has to be compensated. And really it's like 2 minutes. So they do have to prorate you for any extra time you work, but it's also incumbent upon you to report those hours on your payroll records. And if somebody gives you a problem and says, well, we're not going to pay you over 8 hours in the day, we're not going to pay you overtime, we don't do that. I've heard that a lot, employers who say, we don't do that, like it's okay. It's not. Give us a call and we'll help you out on that. Next. Okay, so I'm sorry, but somehow my wrong PowerPoint got put in here, but the slide that I'll just do from memory that I wanted to talk to you about is what's going on now with COVID requirements and COVID protections. And so right now, we're not hearing quite as much about employer mandates for vaccines, but I think they are the norm for most businesses. A private employer as well as a government employer does have the right to require that employees be vaccinated, but in private employment, it's up to each employer situation. In addition, if an employee doesn't want to be vaccinated, some businesses are allowing employees to be tested weekly, but there's no requirement that they do so. And this has created, a few problems. I had somebody who worked in Marin County who called and said he had a totally remote job, worked from home every day, did so before the pandemic, doing it, now. And they still required that he be vaccinated or be terminated, and he didn't want to be, and he was just working from home, not in contact with anybody else. And we tried to negotiate an accommodation with the employer, and they just said, no, not going to do it. That's our policy. So it is tough for people out there who, for whatever reasons, don't want to be vaccinated. There are a religious exemption available, but there are very few religions that will get that exemption. It's pretty much Dutch Reformed and Seventh-day Adventists who've always had a policy about vaccinations of any kind or chemicals in the body. But whether you're Christian, Catholic, Muslim, Jewish, there is no religious doctrine that says you shouldn't get vaccinated. And that's about it. I'll leave it to questions. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Laura.
All right, thanks for being here, everyone, and thanks for having us. We're really happy to, oh, I see we just have someone that just joined us. Great. So I am going to talk about a bit about how pro bono fits into our mission, what we do, and why it's important, and also highlight ways that you can get involved to help the Marin community. Tahirah, can you go to the next slide? Okay, so the first point I wanted to make is that, when thinking about why is helping Marin specifically important, Marin is the 5th wealthiest county in the United States, but 7.2% of its population live in poverty. So that's about 18,500 people. And so out of those living in poverty, only 4.8% are white. So you can see the demographic breakdown, that poverty overwhelmingly impacts people of color. And that's not, I'm not sure if that's a surprise to you, but it's something that we are always considering in our work, that that minorities, people who have historically been marginalized and continue to be marginalized, are more vulnerable to poverty than white counterparts. 22.1% of Marin residents experience severe housing problems. So that includes overcrowding, high housing costs, lack of a kitchen, or lack of plumbing facilities. So that's a pretty significant statistic, I think. And I just moved here from Baltimore, and I can tell you that, seeing ads for apartments that say, oh, don't, we have a kitchen, exclamation point, as if it's something that, it's a gift, to give to you, is pretty shocking for me. 72% of extremely low income households are paying more than half of their income or spending more than half of their income on housing costs, compared to just 2% of moderate income households. So, that is probably not a surprise. I mean, California and the Bay Area have such incredible astronomical rent prices, but just to think about how many people are struggling in that way is hard to swallow. And on average, renters need to earn $51.91, so I guess $52 an hour, which is 4 times the minimum wage in California, to pay the average monthly rental cost of $2,699. 17,500 Marin residents are without legal status. So people that are vulnerable to housing instability, wage theft, and employment instability. And a lot of the people that we serve do not have legal status currently. Can you go to the next slide? Oh, sorry. The last point I just wanted to make is that as an organization, housing, and we believe that housing and employment are non-negotiable elements to having a safe, healthy, and happy life. And so because community members in Marin do not have access to those things, that it's our job to work together as a community to change those outcomes for people so that they have a chance to have a successful and happy life. So this is a snapshot of our impact so far this year. Well, I guess we're at the end of October. So this is January through September, but this year so far we received 3,688 calls for service. So that's either a telephone call or a walk-in of someone who is seeking help of some kind. We opened 563 individual client matters. We closed 784 individual client members, 123 of them involving seniors. And the total impact of that, the total people impacted, which includes household members of those that we worked with, totals 1,892 people. So we're hovering just below 2,000 people that we've touched just from January to September, and we're a staff of 15. So we conducted 120 outreach activities reaching 16,000 people. The employment team that Ellyn leads has recovered so far $800,000 in stolen wages on behalf of Marin workers. And that is an amazing achievement, and just such a testament to how committed we are to helping others. In our community court program, $80,000 in fines and fees were waived for people participating in an alternative sentencing program. 26 people had their driver's licenses restored. And we measure that the direct economic benefit of our legal housing work around, in our legal services work around housing benefited our clients in the amount of $88,000. So we are making a direct impact in the community that we serve, and it's just incredible to see on a daily basis how much, how committed people are to helping Marin residents. Can you go to the next slide? All right, so our pro bono program. So we recruit, train, and maintain volunteer attorneys and non-legal volunteers to support programs that need additional staffing that we don't have in-house. So this includes a community court, which I mentioned before. It's an anti-poverty alternative sentencing program where Marin residents can, in exchange for a guilty plea, complete community service and ultimately receive a waiver of fines and fees for lifestyle infractions like sleeping in your car, jaywalking, having a dog without a license. I mean, certain infractions that typically people who are experiencing poverty or appear to be unhoused will overwhelmingly receive citations like that, as well as parking tickets and minor traffic tickets. We also currently offer estate planning consultations, and so we provide seniors who are income eligible with 30-minute consultations, and pro bono attorneys will assist, and sometimes will also help with execution of those documents. And so that's a limited service that we do right now. We also have we have a partnership with the Marin Superior Court to provide assistance to pro per, so self-represented parties, both landlords and tenants in eviction cases. The court requires that you engage in a mandatory settlement conference to try to resolve a case prior to going to trial. And so we don't provide representation, but we provide pro bono attorneys who aid in hopefully negotiating an outcome that would not involve trial, and hopefully achieving an outcome that is less stressful and less potentially catastrophic for someone who is at risk of losing their home if they go to trial. And we also design periodic programs for specific needs. Like earlier in this year, we had a virtual estate planning event for seniors where, there was a pro bono attorneys who presented to a group of seniors about the importance of making sure that your affairs are in order. We also recently did a consumer training, and eventually we'll do a pro bono clinic in early 2022 with partner organizations to help success coaches that help people in Marin who are dealing with financial instability understand issues around debt collection and bankruptcy, and guide people that they're helping. And we also operate the Marin Pro Bono Network, which currently serves as a recruiting tool for potential volunteers, but is also an area that we hope to expand to really leverage the services that are available to people across Marin in the future. And if you can go to the next slide. So, what can you do? We've talked to you about what we do to try to create equitable outcomes for people living in Marin. And we believe that as a community, we must do these things together, that we have a responsibility together to work toward equity for everybody. So volunteer, whether you're an attorney, you're a civilian, you're a student, there are always opportunities to help the Marin community. And if you want to get involved with Legal Aid of Marin, you can go to the Marin Pro Bono Network, the website's on the slide, and sign up, and I will be in touch with you to talk about what you're interested in doing and how we might be able to utilize your services. We also have volunteer opportunities for non-lawyers, including interpretation and translation, and we especially seek the assistance of native-speaking bilingual Spanish interpreters. We always have administrative and operations tasks. We have an annual appeal, we have an annual fundraiser, and we have general office support. So, you know, there's many opportunities, and you don't necessarily have to be experienced in legal knowledge to be able to help people. Also consider working with one of our partner organizations. So we have partnerships with many organizations, and I've listed some of them here, and I think we'll be able to provide this PowerPoint to you. There's a link to each page of for each partner on this slide. And so the Canal Alliance, the North Marin Community Services, West Marin Community Services, the Phoenix Project, and Community Action Marin are all organizations that are working toward equity and are also welcoming help that you can give.
Well, thank you very much for having us.
Of course, it is my pleasure. All right, so I am just going to say thank you again for a really informative and thoughtful presentation, and I will end the meeting and remind everyone that if you wish to review this presentation, it will be on the Marin County Free Library YouTube channel within 2 weeks. All right, well, goodbye everyone, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.